Mark is joining now.
Can you hear us, Mark?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, I'd like to call this meeting of the Woodstock Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency to order at 7:05 PM. And we'll start with the roll call. William Rowinski,
Marla Butts,
Stuart Peasley,
Mark Parker,
and we have no alternates, and we don't have any members missing. So we'll proceed from there. Action on the minutes of the previous meeting of April 1st, 2024. Does anybody have any comments?
I didn't find anything wrong with it. I would, however, when we get into Dan's report, him to speak to the answer the questions that were listed in he sent us an email, but I'd like him to put it on the record, the answers to the questions in the agent's report. But I saw nothing wrong with the minutes. They looked good to me. Only thing I did have a question is under item D, 6D, that's the Payne Road.
Yep.
Fourth line down, the initials and the PDEA sediment basin. I don't know what PDEA stands for.
Payne District Estates. I forget the last name there.
Association.
Okay, all right.
Yep. Thank you, Ron. The only thing that I have, right at the bottom where it says page 1 of 2, in the under the administrative business, it says ZEO. Do we mean ZEO or wetlands agent? Anybody have a comment on that?
I don't remember. But Dan, you weren't the ZEO at that point in time anymore, were you?
I believe starting that day. I think the context of what we were talking about related to that list of questions
Yep.
is in my capacity as the wetlands agent.
Yep. So, depending matters, so that should probably correctly be wetlands agent. Although
That's what I
Dan
would say.
Dan historically was the ZEO for a while, but it should say wetlands agent.
Any other changes or recommendations? I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes or reject them or whatever.
Move to accept the minutes as read with the exception that on the bottom of the first page, replace ZEO with wetlands agent.
second,
Motion made by Marla Butts and seconded by Mark Parker to accept the minutes from Monday, April 1st, 2024, with the exception of the change to wetlands agent on the bottom of the first page. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
aye,
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Okay, at this point, we will have a brief session of citizens' comments, and that is intended to be anything that would be brief in nature, and that's anything that's not currently on the agenda. Does anybody have any comments that they would like to raise at this point? Okay, not hearing any comments, we'll move on. Pending
Dan,
app-
I'm sorry.
Go
Dan,
ahead.
did you mention that I should be talking in this area or waiting?
Who is this?
Rocco?
You're on the agenda, so we can discuss it then.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a long agenda here, and so we'll move right along as quickly as we can, but please don't be afraid to stop if we need to discuss something more. So pending applications, application 03-24-10 Payne Road, Town of Woodstock, construction of sediment basin with discharge to Peckham Brook. Is there any changes or updates since the last meeting to the proposal for the project? Any engineering changes or otherwise?
Jason, he's on the meeting. With the passing of Jay Swan, will that have any effect on the timing of the work that you had wanted to do here? Because my recollection was you wanted to do it in August.
We'd like to work as soon as we can. I'm hoping for this month or next. The
Okay.
passing of Jay Swan shouldn't have made any difference.
Okay. Do you have the drainage easement all signed on by the property owners? Yeah?
Yeah.
You do? Okay.
It's in a file.
Okay. And who's going to be responsible for filing that on the land records?
I believe the town clerk.
I think you have to present her with it's like a deed. So somebody has to deliver it to her.
Right, yeah, it's on Chan Paquette's desk.
Oh, okay. All right. So then he'll just make sure he puts that in the land records before you start your work.
Sure thing.
Who had constructed these easements? Was that the town attorney or somebody else?
Yeah, it was Rich Roberts from Halloran and Sage.
Okay, because it's as far as I'm concerned, it's done excellently, and it was something that I would have. The format is something that I was kind of looking for, because I believe it offers the most protections to both parties. So I'm very happy with seeing the wording of it. Are there
Sure.
any other engineering changes that we should know about, or any other changes we should know about?
No,
I have a question. This drainage easement, I didn't find it in the packet of materials that I had. Was this put on the website? Dan?
Yes, we got them at the end of the week last week, and I uploaded them to the website.
Okay, thanks.
So, and as clarified by Dan, one is from Stacy Petro, the other one is from the Payne District Estates. And we also have an accompanying note from Ron Petro also. So I
The
think
only
we
thing
have
I see, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Dan, could you go back to that second easement? There's an address missing in that easement. Corporate non-stock corporation with an address of blank. That should be filled in. So before it gets filed, that should be approved by both parties. What the address is for the corporation.
okay.
Also, where is it on the website? I'm looking, I can't see it.
On the meeting page on the town website.
Yeah.
It's an attachment in the bottom section of the page.
Oh, okay.
Exhibit A and B. Ron, do you want to comment on the particular address?
Yes, the address, Bill, would be 155 Payne Road, our home address.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, or issues? Then I would entertain a motion on this item.
Marla Butt speaking. I move to approve application 03-24-10 Payne Road by the town of Woodstock to construct a sediment basin with a discharge towards Peckham Brook.
I'll second it. Stuart Peasley.
Okay, motion presented by Marla Butts to approve application 03-24-10 Payne Road, for the town of Woodstock, construction of sediment basins with discharge to Peckham Brook, and seconded by Stuart Peasley. Is there any further discussion?
Just a comment that application includes the maintenance of the pipes that exist under Payne Road. That was included in the application, so it's not just the construction of the said basin, but it's also the maintaining of those culverts that currently exist on Payne
Yes,
Road.
that's in pencil here on the main application,
Mhm.
so. Okay, and any other comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed? Abstain? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you everyone for the patience in getting this through, and we look forward to correcting this problem. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. All right, we'll move on to new applications. We have 04-24-117 Pondview Road. Stephen Jacobson for Barry Sprague, single-family home addition within the Upland Review area. Any comments from anybody?
Marla Butt speaking. I looked at this. I didn't see any problems with it. I checked the aerial photography and it looks like there shouldn't be any problem there. It's not in wetlands. It should be processed as a wetlands agent approval.
Anybody else? Any comments? Okay, I would entertain a motion on this item.
I move to approve application 04-24-11 for 7 Pondview Road for Stephen Jacobson for Barry Sprague, single-family home addition in the Upland Review area to be processed as a wetlands agent approval.
Second.
Okay, we have motion by Marla Butts, seconded by Mark Parker to approve application 04-24-117 Pondview Road, Stephen Jacobson for Barry Sprague, single-family home with addition within Upland Review area as a wetlands agent approval. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Moving on, 04-24-12, 23 Crooked Trail Extension, Woodstock Building Associates for Susan and William Breslaw deck expansion within Upland Review area.
Marla Butt speaking. Bill, I looked at the aerial photography for this and I don't see any problem with this this deck extension. And I think it should be processed as a wetlands agent approval.
Any other comments? I would agree with your assertion, Marla. So I'd entertain a motion to act on this item.
Well, seeing as I seem to be coming up with these pretty quickly, I move to approve application 04-24-1223 Crooked Trail Extension by Woodstock Building Associates for William Breslaw, a deck expansion in the upland review area to be processed as a wetlands agent approval.
Second,
A motion
Marla,
made by.
Marla does it just so much more efficiently.
We have a
As I've heard
motion-
it so many times, sorry, never mind.
Yeah, motion proposed by Marla Butts to approve application 04-24-1223 Crooked Trail Extension, Woodstock Building Associates for Susan and William Breslaw deck expansion within upland review area, seconded by Mark Parker and proposed to be as a wetlands agent approval. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
aye,
Aye. Opposed, abstain, the motion passes. Thank you. Next. Application 04 -24-13 25 Route 197 Meadowside of Woodstock, request for use permitted as of right for diversion of runoff.
So yes, my name is Rocco Adio. I'm the president of Meadowside of Woodstock.
Mhm.
And I've had several conversations with Dan. And what we're trying to do is, instead of the water going over the pavement right here, what we're looking to do is put a pipe in so it goes underneath the pavement. And the pavement is just millings. So what we want to do, it's gonna, all the water's gonna go in the same area. We just want to put a pipe underneath the road.
Marla Bus speaking, I have a quick question. Do you know where the septic system is to that house that's in the air in the photograph? Is that in the area? I just want to make sure that this isn't effluent from discharge from a septic system.
No septic system there.
Okay,
There will be someday because it's a house lot, but it'd be on the south side. Or the bottom side, I should say.
yeah, but you got a house sitting right in the picture. I'm looking at if you scroll down, you've got the photograph. There's a black car in the driveway.
To go up.
Scroll down to page 4, Dan. Okay, scroll up just a little bit because it's cutting it off. You see how the house is sitting there?
Yep.
And it's coming down from that, it looks like from that driveway. So all I was asking is, does that water have any smell to it or any discoloration?
No, actually, the water's coming down the hill on the left that you can't see. And
Okay,
and it's coming down along the side of the pavement, the millings.
gotcha. I can see how that could be happening like that. Yeah. So how deep are you gonna put the pipe?
Probably a foot deep. We're going to use ADS pipe.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll probably put riprap on both sides.
Mhm.
I've done this a lot, so
Yep.
it's a pretty easy thing.
It is. So are you gonna then put roadway millings down again
Yes.
after you install the pipe?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So if you put down millings, you want to make sure you roll them real tight, because if you don't roll them while they're still soft, you can actually get washing of the fine particles coming off it, and they're actually called polyaromatic hydrocarbons, and they're carcinogenic.
Mhm.
Wouldn't you know, our paving materials are carcinogenic. So it's really important, if you're going to use roadway millings, that you have them rolled.
You mean, sorry for interrupting, but you mean compacted?
No, I mean rolled. Well, like you could call it compacted, but usually they have a heavy roller that comes in and rolls it. And
Yeah.
But if you-
and the pressure
you-
heats it up a little bit, and it reconfines the materials in it.
If you don't have a heavy steam, like the old fashioned steamroller, you can just use a portable compactor.
That won't heat, might not heat that up that much, but that's for them to figure out. I just wanted to advise
Yeah.
them to make sure they compact it when they lay it down. Cause
Good point.
it's a minor repair, but it still could cause them problems if they don't get it tight. But
Mhm.
I don't see a problem with this. I wouldn't call this a water course. This is probably, from looking at the aerial photography, I see no evidence of a stream, coming down the hill like that. My only concern initially was that it was maybe, some effluent from a septic system, but I haven't been out there, so I can't see it, but it makes sense that it's coming down along the side of the road, and then crossing over at that location, coming down off the hill. That makes a lot of sense to me, judging by the 2-foot contours that are on the aerial photography that the town has on the GIS. So it makes a lot of sense.
This is Bill Rowinski. My comments, I have a comment on Dan's letter, and it says riprap was proposed to assist infiltration and prevent erosion within pooling area at the northeast inlet of the trough, and may also be appropriate at the western outlet to control any velocity increasing from piping. So is there any plan to do one or both of the riprap?
Yes, I mentioned that we do both sides in and out.
Okay, not really seeing the topography that easily myself. Is the grade on the outlet side gentle enough that it's not gonna be right? I should say, I don't know how much silt you might get down there. And I was wondering if on the outlet side, it'd be appropriate to have a small silt basin.
Dan, if you could go to page 3 of the document. That actually shows where the pipe is gonna be, and you can see the 2-foot contours.
Okay,
So it's coming out onto a flat portion of the, then it gets steeper as it goes down towards the pond. So with the amount of flow that looks like is coming across the road, just a splash pad to make it more like a level spreader, would probably be the best thing for that, rather than trying to keep the confined. You don't want to have a confined flow at the outlet. You want it to spread out over that slope so that it's less erosive, because it does get steeper, that quite a bit steeper there.
And actually, that's where the water is going right now,
Right.
from both sides of the road.
Yep.
does anybody want to make any stipulation about that, or just you happy with being a riprap on both sides?
I'm satisfied with riprap on both sides.
I'm satisfied with the riprap on both sides.
Okay, and this application is a request for a determination that a proposal is permitted as as of right and or non-regulated use. Is everybody comfortable with that?
I don't know how it constitutes a use permitted as of right. Under what section would it be following under? I can't see it. I think the best thing should say is it's a non-regulated use under conservation of soil and water. Dan? What would it be? What were you thinking of as a use permitted as of right?
Conservation of soil and water.
That's not a use permitted as of right. That's a non-regulated use. So,
Sorry.
yeah. So, I would move to approve application 04-24-13, 25 Route 197 for Meadowside of Woodstock, a request for a non-regulated use conservation of soil and water for the installation of a cross culvert on its access roadway, as shown in the application.
Stuart Peasley, I second the motion.
Okay, motion proposed by Marla Butts for application 04-24-13, 25 Route 197, Meadowside of Woodstock, requests for use permitted as of right
No,
but actually
non-regulated
permitted
use.
as non-regulated use
Yeah,
for the creation, blah, blah, blah. I lost my-
Conservation of soil.
For conservation of soil.
So,
for the installation of a cross culvert on the access roadway.
Correct. Is there any other comments, questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right,
aye,
Aye. Opposed, abstain, motion passes. Thank you, Rocco.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Will I be getting something formal in the mail? Saying that it passed? Or an email?
Yep, I'll write something up and have it sent out.
Thanks, Dan, you're great.
You're welcome.
Bye now.
Bye, thank you. Moving on to D, application 04-24-14, 399 Roseland Park Road, Philip and Michael Grenier, request for use permitted as of right for the creation of a berm. Does anybody have any questions or comments on this one?
Yeah, Dan, could we go to page 4 of your file? Okay. So is Mr. Grenier on the meeting? I don't see him.
I believe so. I believe he's called in. Hi, Mike. If you're on the meeting, can you unmute yourself?
Can you hear me now?
yep,
So I have a
Okay.
couple of questions. So I'm looking at this drawing that you submitted, and you've said that you wanted to have an additional height of 3 to 4 feet to match the height of the septic area, and that you propose 133 to 160 yards of gravel fill and about 60 to 50 yards of topsoil. Your drawing seems to show that you are placing fill to increase the height on the outside, meaning the side away from the house, to increase the height, the way you've got that blue line, proposed height. Are you proposing to place any fill beyond the existing toe of the existing berm, landward toward, waterward towards the wetlands?
Yeah, just a small amount, because if you just raise that up equal to the leach field and you don't put any kind of a swale, basically it'll just drop off rather quickly. And instead of being able to like walk up one side, walk down the other side, you wouldn't be able to if you didn't put a little bit of a swale on the field side. So it wouldn't be much, but it would be a little bit, just to make it where you could walk down that side rather than having to jump down.
So why couldn't you slope that higher elevation towards your house? Why do you have to increase the footprint of the berm in the wetlands, into the wetlands?
The majority of the swale is going to be on the house side.
What swale? I don't see a swale in here. There's nothing on your drawing that says swale.
Marla, can I cut in?
Yes,
So I helped
please.
help with this drawing, and I see my error in perspective with that blue ring looking as it's on the outer side. It's supposed to be on top of. Mike wasn't really talking about anything else on the side, other on the opposite side of the berm.
Mhm.
But I drew it that way rudimentarily out in the field, as you see here.
Okay. So we had an issue with where the wetlands delineation was, because when they did the agricultural lot, they had flags, wetland flags, but on the lot, the agricultural lot, but they didn't have any on the house. And when I was not around in October of last year, the commission approved some activities on the property, but that it was my understanding that whatever was the toe of the existing berm was going to be basically is at the edge of the wetlands, and whatever was towards the house for that, whether or not they're wetlands or not, was going to be accepted as being non-wetland. So I have no objection to granting some kind of approval for filling behind the existing toe of slope. Don't want to see the toe go any farther. There's no reason why the toe of slope of the existing berm has to extend out into the wetlands any farther than what it is. But if he wants to raise the elevation and he wants to slighten the slope, then he's going to have to put it back. I looked at the aerial photography. I looked at FEMA's current flood mapping, and the current flood mapping does not have this in the 100-year floodplain. We also know that the wetlands delineation, regardless of what it was, where the wetlands actually were, the commission has accepted that boundary that's shown on that agricultural subdivision. And that appears to have been at or very near to the toe of the existing berm. So as long as the toe is not touched for that existing berm, and that all the fill is going behind, meaning towards the house, I don't have an objection to placing fill on that side. I don't know what other commission members feel about it. I do not understand what additional work was referenced in here. Talks about on the proposed activity, enhancement of swale to raise height to match septic, add fill. I'm assuming that's the fill behind the berm. And then it says also, and light grading of swales for improved drainage. And that does not show on any of the drawings. So I don't know what that is. But I would have no objection to placing fill towards the house side, as long as the toe of the existing berm is not altered. And it's pretty obvious where the toe is now. It's right on the wetlands edge. There's wetland vegetation that comes right up to the base of that berm. And you can kind of see it on the aerial photograph that Dan is showing on page 5 of the document, the application document.
Mark Parker speaking. I also have a question. Refresh my memory. What is the footprint of the leach field? Does it extend underneath the current existing berm or further, or is it all on the inside toward the house? I can't remember what the footprint is.
Do you see where that little square area is? That's
Oh,
The
Okay.
brown area,
Yeah,
Yeah,
the brown
okay.
area.
that's the leach field.
Okay, so the current berm isn't on top of that. Okay,
No.
okay, all right. Okay.
The only comment I would make about the toe of the berm is that right now there's some irregularities on the berm that you might want to smooth off. And just to make it look halfway decent, I don't think there's enough to be concerned about moving the toe of it. But, he's got some little bit of landscaping there to do. So I just don't see it making sense to be prohibitive about that. But it's basically just maintaining the consistency of the slope would be
So-
an issue.
Stu, if he's gonna raise it by 3 to 4 feet, he's
Oh, no,
not gonna want to have anything steeper than a 3-to-1 slope.
Correct.
So he's
but
gonna have
not-
to pull, he's gonna have to pull back the the slope of the existing berm, because that is steeper than 3-to-1. You
Correct.
can't mow that.
But I don't think that the berm when we went out there, it wasn't the berm that was gonna get raised 3 to 4 feet. It was the area behind it
Right. Which
towards
means
the house. So-
he's gonna have to slighten that slope that's on the existing berm, because the existing berm's what? 3 feet high, 4 feet high?
There is, yeah, but it's not going higher. He's just filling, I mean,
Right, but
maybe
it's at,
moderately higher, but not 3 to 4 feet at the
Yeah.
height of the existing berm.
but the existing berm is pretty much at the angle of repose, which is about
Yes.
2-to-1 or 1.5-to-1. So he's
It's,
gonna have to,
it's a 3
Great.
to 1. It's
you
3
think
to
it's a
1 now.
3-to-1?
Yeah.
All right. So I just don't want to see any more wetlands, because I think the wetlands probably extended underneath the berm, but the way the mapping was done during the agricultural lot, we never researched any farther to find out why there were no flags for that portion. And because of that, the commission has allowed the berm to be maintained there. So anything behind that berm it should not be considered as wetlands.
Yeah,
Because-
I don't think the toilet slope will be moved.
Yeah.
It'll be, there'll be some dressing around, but nothing of any significance.
Mr. Grittier, when do you plan to do this work?
As soon as my backhoe is fixed and as soon as Mother Nature allows me to do it. Because that area there is pretty low. It always is wet to a point this time of the year. I've only been up here since 19, and I'm going to say window of time frame where I could get in there is only about 3 months at the very most, which I'm going to say, which would be like middle of June, July, August, and maybe the beginning of September. I mean, by earlier than that or later than that, it starts to get soft because the heat of the summer is gone. It doesn't dry out as quick, I mean, that's my time frame of working in the field, working on that berm. That's to be determined. I mean, I'm not made of money, it's going to get done when it can get done.
So I got
I
a
think-
question then for the commission. What was authorized last October? What was the work that he's now talking about doing specifically?
Bill Verwinski, this was some low-level grading in the field area between the lot number 29, 4.6 acres. There was a few high spots that he wanted to take down there to kind of potentially dry out a little bit, make it more, or otherwise make it better for the harvesting of the hay in that area.
So was he gonna fill,
No,
taking the high spots
It's
down?
gonna
I
go-
didn't think
He's
that's,
gonna
No.
do some minor gradings, only about a foot deep, and for maybe 16 feet wide in two places.
so Dan, please go back to the air photo so I can understand. I think it was what, page 5? Yeah. So you're talking about down between the Muddy River and that low spot, that it would open that up so that could drain easier, where he just started to do his quote detention basin?
No,
correct.
well,
That's what, that was one of the determinations, and then sort of do some minor surface grading to allow for the growth of the hay.
So
Hayfield.
was he gonna cut the upland and put it into the wetlands?
No, no cut
Okay.
and fill.
Because I don't see how you're gonna make it any drier, to be honest with you, other than potentially opening up a freer flowing towards the river where he's got the detention basin going to, there's a little rise in the riverbank.
Down at the riverbank, there is a rise. There's
Yeah.
significant, that significantly would help if that were cut back.
Which
then it
was
would-
opened up.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it
That
could
would-
free
that would
flow
allow-
easier. Yeah.
yes.
So what's gonna happen is when he opens that up, that means not only is it gonna free flow easier, but in lower storms, it's gonna flood that lower area more frequently because you won't have a berm between the muddy river and that low
No.
area. But
No, Marla, what you can't see is, where that, I think you called it a retention hole
no,
is.
you called it you were trying to do a detention pond for flooding, you said
Okay, okay,
a year and a
Well,
half ago.
okay. In back of that, going towards Muddy Brook,
Yep,
there is a slight elevation there.
yep.
In back of that elevation,
Mhm.
it dips back down again.
Yep,
I am not taking any material all the way to Muddy Brook. I am only taking material from that existing hole
yep.
about, I'm gonna say about 50 feet back. That would still put me about, I'm gonna say a strong 75 feet away from the bank of Muddy Brook where it starts to go back down again.
Yep.
So I'm not doing anything at Muddy Brook itself.
Okay, I just didn't understand what happened in October. I didn't know where the areas of grading were gonna be, where the minor grading was gonna be, and how it was supposed to help you have better growing in the field without somehow changing the hydraulics or changing the elevation of the grades. And the only way I could see that could happen if you weren't importing material would be cutting and filling, cutting the high spots down and filling the low spots. And that may be problematic, but I don't know what the commission really authorized in October.
And another thing, I don't know if you and I had talked about this or if it was the commission when you weren't there, but the existing hole that was there.
Yep.
That is, I should say that is there.
Yep.
The material I was gonna be removing to, do the work I wanna do there, I am gonna put that material in that hole
Right,
to kind of fill it in.
right.
I don't know if I'm gonna fill it in back up to grade level, but I'm gonna just put the material in there.
Yeah. That I understood, that you were gonna refill that hole.
Yeah.
But this application for use permitted as of right was for filling behind the berm. Are you saying you're proposing additional work outside of filling behind the berm towards the house?
Say that one more time?
The application that came in says that you were going to raise the height of the berm, correct? By 3 to 4 feet, 3 to 4 feet towards the house, towards the septic system to make it the same height as the septic system. But then it went
Yeah.
on to say, and light grading of swales for improved drainage. And there's nothing on the drawings that we have here that talk about what that is.
I don't know. I don't know if you basically once that wall is up to the level of the leach field system, which is only going to be from the leach field system to the turn that goes back to Roseland Park Road.
Yeah,
It will only be maybe another, I mean, as I showed Dan and Mr. Beasley when he came out, I'm only
He was-
going about
You like to call.
from the corner, from the bend, I'm going about another maybe 15 or 20 feet. That's still part of the low spot.
so, but that's not out in the field. That's not out in the field. So that reference that you're making, light grading of swales for improved drainage has nothing to do with the field, correct? It has to
No,
do with your
no,
yard.
it's on the house side.
Yep, got it. Okay.
And basically, all it is,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when I go out there and mow the lawn,
Mhm. Yep.
I basically want it just to be a very light swale, and you know, it's going to be part of the lawn. That's all it is. You know, I did want to go a short distance on the field side, only because if anybody wants to walk down into the field, if, you know, I mean, the shortest route is the straightest route. And to make a slight swale on the field side, that's all I was looking to do. It was only going to go out into the field, maybe another 3 feet, 4 feet at the very most. And, you know, that's all I was going to do. Hello?
Yeah, I'm still
still
there.
here.
I'm thinking about how any approval should be motioned. So if anybody else has any comments during this time, I'm going to try to come up with a motion that will fit what I think works. And then,
Well, so I just, this is Stuart Peasley here. I went out there with Dan a few weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, but just to get a better idea for the scope of work being considered and how it relates to the original application. And I think that we sort of clarified some of the points that we were discussing tonight and how they were how they relate to that existing application and what that would consist of. So I think in my understanding that we're just modifying the scope of work from the original application. Is that correct, Dan?
this is a separate application.
Oh, this is separate. Oh, okay.
This is
I thought-
separate. This is not a modification of that. That was
Okay.
something different. He's talking about putting significant amount of additional fill on his property.
Okay.
So
Well, I got the gist of it being really something that was taking a common sense approach towards that scope of work of really trying to put up a buffer or a barrier for the water penetration of his home. But you could get a better sense of it by walking. You see the and the use, the agricultural use, just trying to maintain that. That's been going on for years. So it's really trying to provide security and also sustainability for that haying operation.
I might also comment that those flooding pictures might have been, because I remember that event, that might have been the time where there was a beaver dam that failed up off of English Neighborhood Road that caused a great flood of water, extra water than the rain itself would have committed to, that would have brought down. So I know all the houses in the North Woodstock Four Corners were flooded out and their basements were full. And I
Do
believe,
you remember what year that was, Bill?
no, I don't, but I believe it was a Saturday and I was going to work and there's no way I was going to cross that bridge on Roseland Park Road because there's like a rip current going across it. It was because of the force of the water.
So this has been a request for a use permitted as of right. But it doesn't say under what purpose, and I'm assuming that it would be under maintenance and enjoyment of a residential home.
I concur.
And I'm assuming that because the commission has accepted the line from the wetlands delineation for the agricultural lot, that all this proposed filling is not in the wetlands itself, but is in the upland review area. So I would move to approve. Okay, hold on a second. Application 04-24-14 for 399 Roseland Park Road for Philip and Michael Grenier. Request for a use permitted as of right under maintenance and enjoyment of residential home, the placement of additional fill located north of the existing berm. Such berm is located about 60 to 70 feet south of the existing home to a grade no greater than the existing septic system that is located at the east of the house, and that the placement of fill in wetlands located south of the existing berm is prohibited except that which was authorized by the Wetlands and Watercourses Agency in October of 2023.
I'll second the motion.
Bill, do you want me to repeat it?
No, I got the whole thing, but I can't repeat it, so we're gonna have to go on you, on your thing, but we have the motion made by Marla Butts to approve application 04-24-14, 399 Roseland Park Road, Philip and Michael Grenier, request for use permitted as of right for the creation or expansion, creation of the berm as stated in detail by Marla Butts in her motion. Is there any other questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Abstain? The motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Grenier.
Thank you, folks.
Everybody who's worked on this.
Okay, thanks again.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Application 04-24-15, 168 West Quasit Road, Martin and Susan Weiss, repair and replace sections of lake wall within an upland review area.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
This is Marty Weiss. Appreciate the time and the expedited way that this was placed on the calendar. Is Jason Syriac? Jason, are you on? Jason's our masonry contractor who, he has to apparently pick up his kid tonight at sports, so he might not be on. We're proposing, and again, I apologize for the chicken scratch, and I also apologize for kind of a quasi application. I went to the website and started doing the long form, then realized there was a short form, but I already typed out the exhibit, so I attached those. I hope that's helpful in my explanation. Also sent some photos to Dan that I took yesterday of the damaged area of the wall. Mike O'Shaughnessy put it up for it. Got the certificate of occupancy. We built the house back in May of '96, so it's almost 30 years now. Mike O'Shaughnessy from Bluestone, my late friend, put the current wall in, and that's held up for a long time. It wasn't so much the water runoff. It slopes down to the lake, but there's a really big flat area down there above the existing wall, and that portion that has collapsed. The theory is that there was the dry or the warm winter and all the rain, and then we had that really bad freeze in February, and it just pushed it over with the freeze and refreeze. It wasn't so much the water flow. You look at the picture by my wife's yellow kayak there, it is pretty flat. Dave Santos currently does our lawn, and Dave can mow that right up to the edge of the wall. We initially put the wall in with the beach area that now you can see has grass grown over it. We want to pull that radius back. Those rocks are they're on the beachfront, but they're not really in the water. A couple of them are, but there's no silt, sediment, or sand getting in. My wife's kayak stand is holding up the rest of the wall. So there's some urgency to this request, and I have a bid already that's accepted. I'd like Jason to get going on it. You know, he works at Bungie and does a lot of lakeside work. So he's also, I think he's a masonry teacher at Hartford Tech. So he's raring to go, and we'd like to get this done. We want to pull back about 4 feet on the radius, put bigger block in. The quote says new block with caps, about $5,500 worth of stone. So we're taking all the old stone out. Hopefully Jason can repurpose that at a different project. So again, the good news is I'm on the board of directors for the Quasit Lake District. My wife's a microbiologist. She's on the water quality committee. I'm the constable for Lake Association. So I want to make sure that things are done correctly and legally. We jealously guard their water quality at the lake, so much so that we bought a weed harvester as opposed to putting more chemicals in. I go around and check on erosion in my little pontoon boat as part of my duties as constable. And we also have oxygenation tests. We do mostly filtration tests and effluent tests from across the lake, from the cornfields when they're sprayed this time of year. I'm going to borrow somebody's boat, and we're going to go out and get samples. We send them to Yukon. So we're very, very jealous, and we guard the water quality very jealously. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that there is some urgency here, because if that kayak stand starts to move, the rest of the wall will come down. Right now it's stable, and Jason thinks he can get it done in about 10 to 15 days.
Dan, could you please put the photographs up again? Okay, that one.
Yeah, that's the left side of the wall. You can see where it's collapsed, but the rest of it's being held up, but well, not so much held up, but it's reinforced by the kayak stand.
So,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say,
Right.
It looks like you didn't have any weep holes in your wall.
No, Jason said that Mike really didn't do a very good job, but I don't know. I'm not a mason, but so that's why all that block is going. And then he's putting in glue and wall netting, some crushed stone, about 10 yards. And all that stone you see is being pulled out. And we're going to put bigger heavy duty blocks in.
Has he given you a cross section showing you how much of a footing you'd have and what kind of drainage you'd have behind it and how that drainage would be released?
If you go see the kayak picture,
Yep.
the yellow kayak, I
Yep.
do have Eddie Laro came up. We put a dry sump drain in the back of that, right
Mhm.
where the patio is.
Oh,
So
the little white thing there at the bottom? Is it-
no, that's a sailboat. The white
No,
thing is
at the toe. Oh, I thought maybe you had a
no, I
drain
should
that
have had a
popped
better
out.
picture of it's about a 6 foot by 12-inch grate.
Mhm.
That's filled with crushed stone, and it grabs any water that's come streaming down the hill, if any at all. But we've been really lucky. That's my little 4-wheeler. We drive down the lake, and again, that slopes out very. we built it on the left side, looking at the house from the lake, and the right side has mostly just large rocks and riprap that we put down when I built the house. That hasn't moved.
So
All
how
those
much are you
stone-
gonna have replaced?
the whole wall and the patio system is going to be done. So that's
Okay.
why, yeah. In this way, it's going to be more reinforced and tougher against any refreeze and freeze because Jason's using glue. Mike used straps, and he said it was really a wall that should have been built for like a driveway retaining wall or a garden retaining wall, not for the
Mhm.
lake. But it held up for 20 years. So I think it was a misprint in my application. I put 30, but we did it about 20 years ago.
So he hasn't provided you like with a cross section showing you the amount of stone he's gonna put behind the new wall and what kind of drainage you'll have and how much of a footing you'll have?
I don't
He hasn't
understand. I don't understand what the term footing is.
Oh, it's something that you put below the frost line?
Oh, yeah, he's gonna put that, that's why he has crushed stone, approximately 10 yards of it.
Yeah.
So when I built my stone wall out on the street, I remember the fellas doing that. They put the crushed stone down, compacted it, and then started building the wall. So it wasn't laying on dirt. But yeah, I mean, I trust Jason. Everybody gave him great recommendation. And like I said, he's a teacher for masonry students at Hartford Tech. He's worked on lakefronts for years and years and years. He's a machine. And I'm happy with his bid. It's expensive, but it is what it is. I need to get this done. Because if the rest of the wall does collapse and then sediment starts getting in, there's no erosion at this point. But if sediment start getting in the lake, then we're gonna have a problem with that.
So you're not actually doing any work in the water then? You're just
No,
doing.
no, that's why we pulled it back. I mean, I wanted to get this done over the winter because we lower the lake at the dam. But it would have been a lot easier, but I didn't know it happened until I got back down. I had some surgeries. I'm recovering from my fourth one now. So I didn't have a chance to get down to the bottom of the hill on my little four-wheeler. It's a pretty long walk. So I just noticed it when we were going down to put the dock in. I said, we can't put the dock in until this is fixed. And so the boat's staying up here on the driveway until everything's done. Yeah, this is a priority.
Yeah, so I don't know how anybody else feels about it, but this could be processed as a wetlands agent approval. Since he's not actually doing work in the lake, and I think that before Dan gives an approval, he should have at least a cross section showing what the drainage is gonna be behind the, how he's gonna construct that wall. Usually when we have these walls, we ask for a cross section.
Okay.
See what's gonna go on in the backside of the wall and how you're gonna relieve that pressure that comes from the earth when it's hydrated and it freezes and
Right.
how do you keep it dry so that it doesn't heave, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'll ask Jason to get on that straight away. And I think with Dan's assistance and guidance, then again, I'm a lawyer, I'm not a mason. So when he can, I've been called a blockhead once in a while, but Jason and Dan can work something out, I hope, and Dan can be able to assuage any fears that he might have regarding that. Thank you very much, Ms. Butts. I didn't even know what it was.
We're not done. We have to do a motion on that.
Oh, no, I appreciate it. I just want to thank you for your input.
Okay, you're welcome. That's what we're here for. Okay, I move that application 04-24-15, 168 Quasit Road by Martin and Susan Weiss for the repair and replacement of sections of the lake wall in the upland review area be processed as a wetlands agent approval, providing that Dan gets a cross-section of the wall's construction to show that it's adequately designed.
Fair enough.
Second the motion. Stuart Peasley.
Okay, this is Bill Rowinski. Well, I'll present the motion, then I do have further comment. We have a motion by Marla Butts, seconded by Stuart Peasley for application 04-24-15-168 West Quasit Road. Martin and Susan Weiss repair and replace sections of lake wall within upland review area. So I have comments that this is going to involve some excavation, and I'm wondering if it'd be appropriate to have silt fence along the beach there, should we get some major rain events. and the wall, the grade there is fairly flat.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be pulled back that 4 feet. And that is gonna have to be excavated.
Do you want to amend the motion?
Well, no, because it's gonna be processed as a wetlands agent approval.
Hmm.
And Dan will have to make sure that whatever's erosion and sediment control is in place, but I wanted to make sure that there was a cross section of the wall to be in the record. But if you want, I can withdraw it and Bill you can make the motion.
I can work with Jason to ensure that there's some erosion and sediment control installed. I think that's a pretty simple task.
Yeah, I think the easiest thing there would not be a silt fence, but would be a wattle.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's good. Your Dan mentioned that. I totally forgot when Dan came to have the site visit with me.
Yep.
Oh, again, I don't know what that is, but whatever it is, we'll put it in.
So do we want to put an extension of your motion in there to include that?
All right, let me restate my motion. Let me amend my motion, okay? I moved that application 04-24-15, 168 West Quonset Road for Martin and Susan Weiss for repair and replacement sections of the lake wall in the upland review area be processed as a wetlands agent approval contingent upon the receipt of a cross section for the wall showing its construction, as well as an erosion and sediment control placed along the lake's edge.
Sorry to interject. As long as the cross section is made to scale.
Okay, so be it. I amend my motion to say it's cross sections made to scale.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All right, I'm just gonna restate that we have this motion on application 04-24-15-168 West Quonset Road. And Marla has amended the motion, and the exact wording can hopefully derive from the recording. And it includes the necessity of a cross section of the wall construction done to scale and erosion control put in place
Along the water's edge.
along the water's edge. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Okay, the motion passes.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
I'd stick
We-
around, but I'm gonna watch the Bruins.
You know, we could use a good attorney on our commission.
You know, town clerk asked me to be the moderator for for May 14th. So I'm gonna start tomorrow. I'm gonna study how to be a moderator again for a town meeting. I haven't done those in years, but I'm looking forward now that I'm done on July 3rd to doing more for the town and with the town. So thank you for that. If anybody has any questions, my number, Dan can get a hold of me, and Jason's also open for questions too. Thanks, guys.
Yep, thank you.
Bye-bye.
you.
now. You bet. Thanks, Dan.
All right, moving on. On new application F. Application 04-24-16 120 Beaver Dam Road. Jose Macho requests use of permitted as of right for repair of eroded shoreline. Questions or comments about this proposal?
I did have a question about the actual, I see that from the picture of the eroded shoreline. And it looks like there's already riprap there, or stone. And the question that I have is, where was the placement of the new stone going to be? Was it going to be just on top of this stone and going up to where the tree line is? I was unclear as to exactly where how far the stone was going to get placed. If it's not actually beyond the current toe of the current stone, and it's just intended to stabilize that shoreline, which is usually caused by wave action of boats and things, that could have been covered as a conservation of soil and water as a non-regulated use, but I'm unclear as to how much, how the stone is gonna get placed and how it's gonna be put in. Is it gonna be dumped? And how much? How much cubic yardage were we looking at? Do we have
Bill
May I
that?
speak?
Please.
Go
Hi,
ahead,
Jose
Ross.
Macha. I'm sorry.
Okay, Jose, go ahead.
Yeah, I have an unstable internet connection courtesy of Spectrum. So please bear with it if it garbles or what have you. But the plan is to just simply improve the grade slightly. But to your point, the stone would extend probably to where the tree trunk, a little bit above that. I would like to lessen the grade from the garage coming down to the lake slightly. So the stone buildup would be slightly elevated above the existing high water mark, which you can see in the picture. This was taken when the lake was drawn down.
So you are would be saying, Bill, this is Bill Rowinski, that the say mean high water mark would be at the base of the grass there in the bottom of the
Yeah, the
stump.
stone placement, the idea is to certainly not disturb the lake as much as possible. So the stone placement would be partially in the existing rocks, which I think Joe Camper did 100 years ago. So, and with that, just elevate it slightly, lessen the grade, and the amount of rock would simply be enough to support that and prevent further erosion. I have no intention of encroaching onto the lake, trying to land grab more property or area off of it at all. And the stone would probably follow the embankment as well.
You were talking about grading, making it less steep to your garage. Were you talking about earth moving?
So there would be some soil placed above where the removed tree is.
Yep.
Probably a foot, yes. And that would just lessen the grade to the garage area, and the riffraff would come up and cover part of that as well. So there wouldn't be any concern or worry about any of that soil leaching or in any way draining into the lake.
So Dan, you've got this listed as a use permitted as of right. Under what, although the application came in as a regulated activity application, under what criteria would it be for the use permitted as of right?
Conservation of soil.
Okay, that's a non-regulated use, and I think it would match for that. Because the criteria for uses permitted as of right and non-regulated uses is different. For non-regulated uses, you have to be able to show that you're not altering the natural and indigenous character of the wetland or watercourse. So you don't get that in uses permitted as of right, but you get it under as a non-regulated use. So the question would be placement of additional stone and some fill in the upland review area. Could that classify as non-regulated use conservation of soil and water, because he's not proposing to alter the natural and indigenous character of the watercourse where he wants to place the stone. Does anybody have a question for me on that, though? I know it's a nuance, but I don't have a problem processing it as a non-regulated use, but I would like to have an idea as to how much stone we're talking about and how much fill we're talking about.
Bill Rowinski, the same issue could be here of a cross-section also. Just to give an
I think that
idea.
so my thinking is, I'm not a soil or certainly a stone expert, but the riffraff would be whatever typical size is, and we're not, and probably one layer or more maybe a little higher where the waves would typically be pounding on the soil. But again, the whole intent is just to prevent further erosion, up the grade a little, and attempt to maintain, so there's no issue with any lake related problems. So if you see above where that tree trunk was, that was where silt fencing was up when the garage addition was built last year. So this property I purchased 3 years ago, last year was spent on a major renovation on a house that was ready to fall apart. And now I'm attempting to do a little work on the lakefront. I have some other in the front. It's a corner lot, but this is the area that has the most problem. So directly behind where if you show on the Google Earth view as well, you can see this is where the gate is located as well. So we're at the southern extreme end of the Lake Bungee. My property abuts the dam built to separate Bungee from Witches Woods. So that's right there that's a dam area right there in the corner.
So when were you planning on doing this work?
Well, that was a question I had for the committee members, whether or not this could be performed at the lake height, or would this have to wait until the lake is lowered, which was a question that I had.
So I don't think we're ready to, because you don't really know how much cubic yardage you're looking at as far as the amount of stone, and you don't know how much the soil you're looking at. You still got to do a little work to do, and I would recommend that this be done during the time when the lake is drawn down.
Drawn down, so it would have to be after October.
It would have to be, yeah, it would have to be like probably October, November. I don't think they start drawing it down till October. So in the meantime, we could table this application now and give you a chance to contact a contractor to find out how much cubic yardage that you're talking about, stone versus soil, could come up with a cross section.
Okay, you do need a number. I wasn't quite sure. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll be happy to do that. But again, I'm trying to preserve it. I don't want a stone wall, which is so common on most of these lakes. If we can preserve some of the natural shoreline, which is kind of what I'm trying to do. So.
Yeah, so I would move that application.
I'll work with Dan.
04-24-16, 120 Beaver Dam Road, by Jose Macho, be tabled until next month's meeting to provide Mr. Macho an opportunity to come up with some quantities for stone and soil, as well as a cross section.
Fine.
To scale.
To scale, cross section to scale.
Are we into scales this week? Is that do we need scales on this?
You always need scales because people can fudge things otherwise.
I have plot plans when we did all the renovation work, so I could probably get a much more detailed topography rather of the lot and those kinds of things. So yeah, happy
just
to do
a cross section, a typical cross section.
And just it's just me spelling, minor technical spelling. It's rip rap, R-A-P, not rip raff.
Not rip raff. That's
I thought it was
that's
a
what
song.
they put under bridges.
I thought it was a song. Sorry. But on a separate note to the committee members, I have signed up for the DEEP Lake Watch, which is a quasi volunteer organization. The DEEP sponsors for those that live on or near lakes to provide daily updates and monitoring, particularly of transparency and turbidity of the lakes. So I'm waiting for the next class opening, which and when that happens, I mention it only because there's some equipment investment needed to do this. A device called a Searchy disc Sergi disc?
Secchi.
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 Secchi disc, so much of my knowledge.
Secchi.
Yes, you're all familiar with that. So if
Oh,
there's
yeah.
one around, that might help. But my thought being, if I'm hoping to do it on planning to do it on Bungee, but if I'm going to make the investment, if there are other lakes that would benefit from the monitoring as such, you know, I do have a kayak, easy to get out there, and a camera to do this. So by all
You know,
means, let me know.
You can make your own Secchi disc. If you have a round, flat piece of metal, like maybe an old weight, like a
Yes, I
4-pound.
saw them on Amazon. I did, yes.
Yeah,
The
and
DEP
you just,
wants something more accurate, I guess, with the measured string on it, and these are data points at collection and such. So I don't know.
Okay.
But that's like I said, once the class get notification, then I can be the disc man.
Disco.
Yes, disco
So,
lives
Bill-
on in spite of our age.
so Bill, I've moved to table this application till next month to provide the applicant an opportunity to provide information regarding the amount of riprap and the amount that he, well as a scaled cross section, typical cross section.
Happy to do that.
I don't know who seconded, so,
I don't know if anybody seconded.
okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have,
Stuart Peasley here.
we have an application,
It was application 04-24
Thank you for your time.
17.
yeah,
197
120 Beaver
Crystal.
Dam Road.
Oh, excuse me. It was 04-24-16, 120 Beaver Dam Road.
Yep. We have the motion for Marla to table this application till the next meeting to give the time for the applicant to provide more detailed information. Does anybody have any further questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? The motion passes. Thank you, Jose.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, we'll move along to the next one. Application 04-24-17, 197 Crystal Pond Road, United We Stand LLC for Mike and Carla Charette, 18 by 16 addition within the upland review area.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes,
How you
Yes.
doing? I'm Bill Mengy with United We Stand.
Yep.
I'm the contractor that's working with Michael and Carla Charette. The area where the new addition is going, it's off the gable end. I believe it's northwest facing side. And the home already has a stone hardscape in the location already. That's the exact area we're going to be working in, where this it's going to be a master bedroom addition. In the current second bedroom, which is very small, will be turned into a bath for that addition. There'll be silt fence around the whole perimeter. Any overburden, because we're only doing a frost wall on this project. So any overburden will be hauled out if it can't be used. I don't know if you have any questions for me in regards to that.
I didn't see any problem with this Marla Butt speaking. I didn't see any problem with this application. It's in the upland review area, can be processed as a wetlands agent approval. Could have also classed potentially as maintenance and enjoyment of residential home. Have you already paid the fee? Have you already paid the fee? The
Yes.
application fee? Okay.
Yes.
And we'll process it as a wetlands agent approval. I would move to approve I may be doing this too quick.
yeah, you're too quick.
Yeah, sorry, never mind.
Bill Rowinsky, on the last drawing, you have a gable end detail
Mm-hmm.
and it says 4-inch concrete slab. Is that something existing there or is that?
No,
something
that'll
that-
be, so the finished floor will have whatever have you is finished flooring, but underneath that, there will be a 4-inch slab within the frost wall for the base of the floor.
Okay, and then my other question is, are you planning to relocate that patio?
No, maybe in due time, you know, the homeowners may do something, but there's gonna be no location there. If you see off the back of that print, if you go back up one more page on that, you'll see there's a deck on the back portion that's being added at the same time. It goes out 6 feet from the back of the proposed addition, which is the exact location of the house,
Mhm.
the existing house now.
Okay, yeah,
So that's gonna, I would say, occupy where their, you know, location for them. They'll have ample space there for a grill or whatever have you.
okay, it's just, some of these drawings were difficult to read on
Oh,
the
no problem. I would have,
screen, so.
yep.
All right, Marla, you can go now.
I move that application 04, excuse me, 04-24-17 for 197 Crystal Pond Road for an addition for United We Stand LLC for Mike and Carla Charette for an addition to the existing home in the upland review area be approved by, as a wetlands agent approval.
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion made by Marla Butts to approve application 04-24-17-197 Crystal Pond Road, United We Stand LLC for Mike and Carla Charette, 18 by 16 addition within the upland review area as a wetlands agent approval. Any further questions or comments?
No, thank you very much, board.
Yep, you're welcome. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Abstain? The motion passes. Thank you.
All right, have a great night. Thank you.
You too.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry to
Yes.
interrupt. This is Dottie Durst. I couldn't hear who seconded the motion. Thank
Stu
you.
did.
Stuart Peasley.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, moving along to letter H, application number 04-24-18, 72 Lakeview Drive, Kyle Asimovic for Fitzpatrick and Regola drainage upgrade in Lakeview Drive, drainage upgrade to Lakeview Drive. This is, I think, fairly new information, so that you might not have all had a chance to look at it.
I didn't even downloaded it. Okay. Is this under the documents, Dan?
Yes, it's a recent upload. Carl got it into me this morning and we digitized it and put it up online around 10 o'clock.
Okay.
So this is an application for regulated activity.
And I believe the site plan demonstrates discharge direct to the wetlands. So this is an application that the commission would be scheduling for review at a following meeting.
I've visited that site several times, and the other question I have is, why is the existing catch basin not functioning? I mean, I agree with the upgrade, but somewhere in there it says that the existing catch basin does not function properly.
Could I respond to that?
Yes,
Okay, this is Carl Atsamovic. The reason why is because the catch basin discharges to an underground French drain type stone enclosure. And it is in disrepair, shall we say, and filled with sediment. So water that comes down the road presently washes over the top of the basin and goes down between the house lots in the same path that we have shown.
okay,
So it's basically non-functional.
yeah, okay. I
Carla Buff
visited,
speaking.
okay, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry.
Marla. Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, what was their timing on this, that they were planning getting this done?
The timing, they have constructed a temporary swale made out of a small riprap, and they would like to get the new installation in as soon as possible, because they want the grass to take before the end of the year. So the timetable is soon, and I think that what can be done down at the shoreline, because water levels no doubt going to be coming up fairly soon, is to install large sandbags as a cofferdam, and then work their way to putting in the first thing you would do is put in the stilling basin of stone down at the end, and then work your way directly upstream to the manhole and the new catch basin.
I don't know if this is Bill Rowinski. I don't know if anybody else has visited this site, but the road slopes from both direction with both of the catch basins being the low spot. So it's coming downhill from Buggy Hill Road, and it's coming downhill from the other side of Lakeview Drive. And the water also comes to the right of that new single grade catch basin, comes down that hill when there's heavy flows from that field. And I might question whether the water doesn't also come down from Buggy Hill Road. My memory's not totally clear on that. I've visited several times during the high rain flows. There's not much of an apron for that road, and the way it's pitched, I think that you might get some contributions from Buggy Hill Road. So there's a large amount of water that congregates at that one spot that is basically saturating the ground, and the existing solution does not work and was probably inadequate anyways from the flows. And from my understanding, when we discussed this before, that several of the people, at least one, if not several of the people on that lakefront cannot use their septic systems or water when the ground gets saturated from those flows.
I've outlined the two septic systems, and you are correct in the fact that the upland area there does get saturated. As far as Bungay Hill Road, there's a slight berm there, but I don't know that it's sufficient during very heavy storms to divert water, down Bungay Hill Road, which it's supposed to be doing at this point. There's a swale along the edge of that road that goes down to a discharge into the lake down at the bottom of the hill. However, the pipe that's going in will be a watertight pipe, so that first of all, it can't discharge anything through the joints, and secondly, nothing can come in through the joints from the septic systems. That's a very important consideration here.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you.
And the major part of the drainage area is to the east of the road, and it includes the woods going up just straight up toward the top of the hill. It's about 2 acres in size, and there's a little bit of meadow up on top that also contributes. And you're correct, it's coming from both directions because it's sitting down in a hollow. And so the phase 2 plan here, as I've noted, would be a paved road in this area to lessen the impact of the sedimentation from a gravel road that's there now. And hopefully when that fits into the budget, that'll get constructed. And the important part of that will be that there would then be a curb placed along the west side of the road that diverts water directly to the larger basin, and instead of washing off to the side of the current basin.
I'm Robert Billings. I am the roads chair for Bungay Lake, and I do plan on implementing that phase 2 of the tarring next year in the budget. This year it's probably not going to be something I can get done, but at the very least, I plan on taking that side of the road and putting some riprap in it, and at least diverting into the double basin down here for the time being to keep all the sediment out of that pipe. And next summer I plan to have all of that paved.
So we're just receiving this application today, and tomorrow, next month, we could have additional, do we have a sequence of construction, Carl, on this in your plans?
Typically you start on the downstream end, you put in your, in this case, we'll probably run into some kind of a high water situation. So we'll have a sandbag cofferdam down at the bottom, put in the stilling basin. And then on the, then build your line going in the upstream direction. And as we go up, we would put in, and I can explain this in a phasing plan. We would put in sedimentation, erosion controls along the way to protect the newly graded and seeded areas.
Yeah, if by next meeting, if you could have, and I'm looking through your documents here and your engineering report and stuff, but I was just hoping that we would have, as part of the application, a sequence of construction and potential schedule for construction. That would be helpful for us rendering decision.
Yep, I can do that.
Yeah, the only other thing I can think of is if you do hit groundwater, water handling plan, how do you plan to dewater it if you have to dewater during construction?
Yeah, I apologize for not putting that on there, but typically I have the a water handling plan prepared by the contractor before construction begins.
Okay.
So we'll add that as well.
Yeah. Because you got the septic systems that are there, and if he starts pulling in, water from the septic systems as opposed to just plain groundwater, kind of want to get an idea as to how you're going to handle that water if you have to. Hopefully you don't. Hopefully we'll go into a dry spell this summer, but it's not looking good yet.
We're at 100% in all the reservoirs in Eastern Connecticut, by the way.
Yeah. I move to accept application 04-24-1872 Lakeview Drive for consideration for a permit at next month's meeting.
Stuart Peasley, I second.
Oh, good, Peter.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Mark.
It's okay. It's okay.
So who's the official second, Mark or Stuart?
I'll let Mark.
Okay, I'll take it.
Okay.
I'm
I
exhausted.
second it.
I'm exhausted.
So we have a motion by Marla Butts to accept application 04-24-1872 Lakeview Drive. Kyle Asamovic for Fitzpatrick and Pagola drainage upgrade to Lakeview Drive. For discussion at the next meeting. So, motion made by Marla Butts, seconded by Mark Parker. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. So we'll see you next month. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on now to administrative business. Do you want to take over here, Dan, for a bit?
Yep. So we have no correspondence. So I'm going to jump right into the agent report. Mr. Jose Macho on Thursday stopped by the office and showed me some pictures of a lot being cleared on Hemlock over in the Bungay area. I researched and found no permits in building, zoning, or wetlands for this activity. And I've drafted a notice of inquiry that I plan to send when I set my eyes on it. But I've seen it in pictures. I've seen in the pictures some skunk cabbage, some kind of indication of hydrophytic vegetation. But I want to see with my own eyes, and if there's still some clearing activity stop the contractor on the site. But otherwise, he said that the lot's been mostly cleared already. So I think we're gonna potentially have a request for voluntary compliance, which might turn into a permit application. It can only be cleared for probably a single family home is my guess, but nobody's got any permits that have been applied for.
Well, it might need some erosion control too.
Sure. So I'll let the commission know if I do send a letter, it would be tomorrow. And I'll let you guys know well in advance of the next meeting that I've sent that letter and who's called me about it and come to the table with a solution. So we asked a lot of questions at the last meeting and got, I think, answers to all but one are finally in no particular order, in the order of the report that I sent this afternoon. It was asked who owns the lake bed of Roseland Lake. Our GIS and town property data isn't helpful, but the 2006 Little River Source Water Protection Plan states that Roseland Lake is jointly owned by the town of Woodstock in the state of Connecticut.
So Dan, I want to interrupt you here. Where in that
Um,
report does that say that?
Let's see.
You can,
Yeah, I'd have to dig through it. I think it was early.
okay, because
Yeah, it was early.
searched
I remember
Rose,
seeing it early.
okay, because I searched Roseland and I came up with 21 instances, but I didn't see anything relation to ownership.
Marla Butt speaking, even if the report does say that's who own it, that's not definitive. I mean, you really have to go to the land records, the deeds, and probably goes back to when Bowdoin originally, back in the 1800s. Because it was reported that, from what I've heard, is that the lake was actually hand dug, which I find that hard to believe, and that there was a small dam at one time at the end of it, but I don't have any evidence of that. I haven't looked at the aerial photography. But in order for the state to have picked up a partial ownership means that there most likely would have had to have been some kind of boat launch, state boat launch there, and I don't think there is a state boat launch there. It's a possibility that
see.
it was a possibility that it was used as a reservoir for a factory downstream, and that maybe as time went on, if there had been a dam that helped to hold it up, I don't know. It's all pretty flat down through there at this point in time. It could probably look at the 1936 aerials to see what it looked like back then. But if it was really dug or developed back in the 1800s, those records are all like at the state library, land records. Some of those are not in the town records, so.
Well, Bill Rowinski, from my understanding from historical presentations, is that Henry Bowen did a lot of filling there and he got his fill from drumlins in the area. So a lot of that area where the park is was likely filled, and it's conceivable that some of the lake could have been excavated too, also for that.
I'll keep digging for a source of this reference here. If the state is partial owner, then there's got to be some record somewhere.
Well, here's the thing. There, somebody's been looking at the Stonebridge Road bridge, probably for some construction on there, and I believe they said it was somebody from the state came to the Fish and Game Club to get permission to access the property to do that. So I don't know if that's correct story that the state's doing that and that their interest would control that bridge also. If somebody else has got a different information about that, but it's conceivable that there could be some state involvement there.
I'll also add that ancient geological evidence shows that Roseland Lake used to be a much larger lake. There was a natural land dam that was created after the glacials receded. And so basically all of Little Pond Road and the Wyndham Land Trust birding area, all that was underwater. The lake actually went up all the way up, up along Roseland Park roadside and the Senexit roadside, almost up to where Elmville Cemetery is, and that's why we have a lot of sand deposits from where there were sandbars and so forth. But then I don't know how many 100 years ago, when the natural land bridge broke through, it was probably in around 1000 or 1200 AD. That they predict that gave way, and then there's some ancient Indian sites that have been found behind Chase Lumber and so forth, that were along the shoreline there. So it was a much larger lake in the ancient times past, and when Henry Bowen started working, he was basically filling in an existing drained lake bed, with Roseland being kind of the center remaining part of it. So just wanted to add that. They didn't have to dig the lake out. It was already there. It was just greatly reduced in size.
Well, they might have done some minor excavations there. So.
Yeah, they might have done some minor excavation. Yeah.
If you don't mind my just going off topic for a sec, Mark. I recently ran into a property where somebody had been finding in the uplands, not wetlands, cairns that apparently were burial mounds for Native Americans.
Right.
Have you run across that?
Yeah, I'm familiar with this. Some up above New England English Neighborhood Road. Yep.
And then I thought, and I've got to double check it, but I was walking through a neighbor's wetlands the other day, and I thought I saw some, and there had been some talk of indigenous tribe activity in that area. So it'd be interesting to follow up and see the location of it. But it's not unusual then to find these kind of rock mounds, stone mounds that were essentially burials, I guess.
Right. So anyway, I know we've digressed a little bit, but yeah, it's probably the town of Woodstock owns most of the property underneath the current lake bed, but we can do some more digging.
Yep, I'll look for the source.
Yeah.
The solar petition 1617 that was on Castle Rock Road. The commission wanted me to reach out to the siting council, and I got a response from Melanie Bachman, who's the executive director, of to some of my questions. The petition was first submitted on March 5th, 2024. It was added to their agenda the April 25th meeting to set a date for a decision. They haven't published those minutes yet. I was refreshing the page today, and they're still not posted. She mentioned that the siting council has exclusive jurisdiction over proposed electric generating facility. They welcome comments. They sent a letter to the town on March 6th, but it was addressed to a building clerk at woodstockct.gov. I think that was Tina LaJoie's old email. So they didn't have our correct emails to reach anybody here. And she said she sent it by email. But we can still comment, but they have
What's the location of this site?
Castle Rock Road, the Chapman property.
The opposite side
So-
of the road from the airport.
Okay. So, siting council, that, well, they have the authority over the actual generating facility if there are things like road construction to gain access to the site, that isn't necessarily covered by the siting council. So that was one of the questions. Did we get any plans from the siting council?
We had some preliminary plans, I believe.
Are they in your offices, Dan?
I've been going right to the petition
Website?
webpage. Yeah, there's
So,
like 40
could you-
documents with that, but
Could you send me a link?
yeah, yeah.
Just send me a link via email and
Okay.
I'll go take a look.
That's a first to me. I was not familiar with the siting council. Is that with the corporation?
No,
the
that's
state-
for the,
It's a
It's-
state
it's-
agency that oversees the positioning and siting of these generating facilities,
Okay,
unless Marla's got a different opinion.
no, they are covered by the generating facilities, but could be other activities that go on with the generating facility that is not directly related to the generating facility that may be subject to regulation by the wetlands agency. Like, for example, an office building associated with it, or a road construction that's not specific to it.
So there is identified wetlands. And two, or you could count 3, 4 areas of concern.
Mhm.
But I will, it's quite a amount of documents associated with this. I can share this link I'll share this link with the rest of the group.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome. On to FEMA flood maps. When will they be published for Woodstock? I emailed Diane Ifkovic, who runs, who's the FEMA flood coordinator for Connecticut flood mapping. She indicated that Woodstock is part of the Shetucket River watershed study, which they're working on. USGS is FEMA's mapping contractor for this project. The Shetucket River watershed towns are scheduled to get preliminary maps this June, but that could always be delayed into the summer. Final effective maps are a few more years down the road. The project, right now, the projection is March 2026, but that is not a firm set date. That watershed, the Shetucket River watershed, includes 28 communities over three counties. From 28 communities. The watershed study has been combined with the Thames River watershed study, and that project has 21 communities. So I think there's a substantial amount of towns anticipating updated mapping through this Shetucket River and Thames River watershed. We're at the top of the state, so we'll see how quickly we get those.
Just a little interlude on this. If you want to see what the new mapping would look like, if you go to Thompson's Map Geo, their parcel maps, they have a layer added in for the new FEMA mappings because the French River was done before the Shetucket. So if you want to see what they look like, they're actually posted on Thompson's GIS website called Map Geo.
Oh, we had a question, is a wetlands delineation required in zoning regulations? There is mention regarding delineations for zoning permits. that states that the CEO or the Planning and Zoning Commission may require locations of all wetlands and water courses and whether field located by a soil scientist or derived from USDA soil survey. That keyword may, I think it's typical for such a subdivision application, but I don't think it is a across the board rule with that word may involved.
So one of the things that, while I was doing the regulations for the town of Thompson, I came across that site plan reviews, those that required special permits. Both of those require, if the site contains wetlands, they have to submit an application, just like in a subdivision. So planning and zoning might want to consider changing their regulations with respect to site plan reviews and special permits to include the delineation on there so that they know. And I can show you where that is in the statutes if you need that, Dan, to talk to them
Thank you.
about that.
Okay. From Zachary Donai or Nace, of Deep Pesticide Program. We asked, what is tracked by DEEP after the application of pesticides? Is there local jurisdiction or responsibilities? And Zachary wrote back, aquatic permits are written specifically for the specific treatment and site. Depending on the site, we may require vegetation surveys or water sampling. All aquatic treatments require submission of a year-end report. Local wetlands commissions have the ability to provide comments on a specific aquatic application, which may influence what is written to the specific permit. If there are questions on a specific permit application that you receive, let us know, and they can put us in touch with someone who writes or reviews and writes the aquatic permits. If there's any additional questions that the commission has about pesticide applications in deep jurisdiction or follow-up, I'm happy to send another round back to them. I kind of felt like it, we didn't really, we got an answer, but I guess each application is treatment and site specific. But I'd like to, for my knowledge, understand how robust this type of year-end report is, or is it they checked off a few boxes and wrote a sentence or a paragraph, or is it pages of data collected and analysis?
Dan, I think the question that I had was, while Sunday get permits for pesticide applications, I thought it was the requirement of the applicator to provide an after the fact report identifying what they actually did apply and what they did do. Because just because they get a permit to do it doesn't mean they do it. And I thought that there was somebody in pesticides about 5 or 6 years ago that was actually tracking the difference between what was applied for and what was actually issued, what was actually applied, meaning what pesticide was actually distributed to the water body. And I think they dropped that before COVID, dropped tracking that. So that was the question I had, but I'll send it to you in a separate email.
Okay.
Specific question I have.
Once I get that, I'll follow up with a couple more of my questions, send them over to Deep Pesticides. From Deep Dam Safety regarding Mr. Bentley's dam berm, from Dan Lisnewski. We've had some correspondence with him regarding this dam for a while. I asked him what response has Deep received from Mr. Bentley. They have not received a response from Mr. Bentley. I asked them what extent of Deep jurisdiction is involved in the deconstruction. And Dan wrote back, based on the inspection reports sent to DEEP by Carl Asimovic, they've classified this dam as a BB, moderate hazard class dam. They have a jurisdiction over all dams except for AA, which was rated as negligible hazard class dam. So they assume jurisdiction over the removal of this dam. Mr. Bentley will need to obtain a permit through Deep Dam Safety to remove the dam or perform repairs. Asked him what previous work might have been that was conducted there might have been in the wetlands agency's jurisdiction. The construction of the dam would have all been under deep jurisdiction, but it was not constructed with a permit from them. What work regarding deconstruction might be inland wetlands agency jurisdiction? And he said, similar to the other question, because the dam is a BB hazard dam, DEEP will have jurisdiction over the removal of the dam and any repairs done under proper design. So I'm assuming proper design means engineered plan. And I will follow up with him to say we'd like to be copied on correspondence.
So Dan, the next interaction with dam safety is ask them, what is their next course of action?
Okay.
Because I found that working with dam safety, if you don't keep touching base, it's a squeaky wheel that gets the grease, and it'll just fall between the cracks because they have high hazard dams that they're trying to deal with. And I just think nudging them each time, just so there's a record on the part of the wetlands agency, that we haven't ignored the situation for the citizens. And the only way we can make sure that happens is to keep nudging them and getting them to set up, what's your timetable for taking an action? What's your next action? And when are you going to do it?
Copy of correspondence, what is DEEP's next course of action and timetable?
Yep.
Okay. The one question I still haven't gotten a response for, and it's the most local. Does Putnam have a watershed map filed with our town clerk? We haven't found one. And I asked Brian Lynch at the town of Putnam, is there a map we can file? And what is their preferred reporting format for the applications we receive? I think it might be easier to find them in person, maybe than to email, but I'm still looking for an answer to that question. Right now, I suggest people use the online link that we have on our application page. It's a generic watershed reporting form. I think it goes right to DEEP. But I'd like to have a Putnam map filed with our clerk and develop a routine of this reporting to that Putnam watershed. I think we've got we're getting pretty good with the Wyndham Waterworks, but they're formalized with a map on file, a map in our office, their own form, and you send a mail and they'll send you a review back in a couple weeks time. Whereas Putnam, I don't know if they're getting the mail at all. But I'd like to get our process with them formalized and routine.
So Dan, as long as they don't have a map filed, that's not a requirement to submit for applicants to submit that letter to the water company. We're just doing it as a courtesy if we include it as a requirement. Putnam does not have a good history in dealing with its water diversion issues, with its water supply historically. So, and they're a municipally owned water company, and if they don't see any need to have to spend their resources that way, they're not going to do it. And so whether or not we just continue to have people submit them just as a courtesy, But legally, they're not required. The applicants that are, but you don't know which one is in the public water supply watershed for anything that's in the Little River. Let's put
Yeah.
it that way. That's their watershed. So whatever the Little River watershed is, that's their water supply. That's their water supply.
So Dan, just Bill Rowinski to interrupt here. I believe the woman's name is Elaine Sestair. I don't
Yep.
know if she's still there. She might be a better contact by email. I have contacted her before. She was pretty good at getting back to me. So I don't recall her position, whether she's.
Yeah, I will.
if,
I think she's not town manager, but she's their administrator.
Something
sort of a
like that, yeah.
Town manager function.
Yeah, you
And
might
she's the
get-
town engineer, I think is also in her, or was the town engineer, but comes from an engineering background. I think that's a good name to reach out to.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding me, Bill.
Yeah.
We had talked about foundations for sheds, and I'd asked the building official about this, and he's like, "You're right, but let's see. The exception to this was a freestanding accessory structure with an area of 600 square feet or less of light frame construction with an eave height of less than 10 feet shall not be required." And this is related to frost protection. Yeah, I don't really understand code, but he said there was an exception for light frame construction on accessory structures less than 600 square feet. With an eave height of less than 10 feet.
That it would not require any excavation, any piers.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so you could just use concrete block or gravel.
Yeah, it's referenced that the code's related to frost protection.
Yeah.
And in those cases,
just floating
yeah.
piers, they're called.
So you also said in your information to us that if it was other than a light frame construction, the size went down to 400 square feet. And with an eave height of 10 feet
Okay.
or less. So light frame is to 600 square feet, but if you're not light frame, but you're heavier, you go down to 400 square feet.
Yep. Yeah, that's exception 1, and then exception 2 was the 400 square foot other than light frame construction.
Well, the only other thing that's related is where if there's a setback involved. And that would be again a consideration between who's the AHJ between a setback and wetlands. And I would assume if there was wetlands in a setback that the wetlands would govern. But that might be the only other thing I could think of that would be an overlap between the two agencies. Actually, 3 agencies. If you've got the building official, planning and zoning commission, and wetlands. And that it's in that's delineated in the zoning regulations about structure size. And I think it's anything over 120 or under 120 square feet.
Yeah, we have setbacks, I think, ranging from 3 feet to 20 feet.
Yeah.
And it's size dependent. There's a threshold which requires a building permit, and I believe that's 200 square feet. Anything smaller than that like such as a coop might not require. And something that size could be as minimum as 3 feet away from a property line,
Okay. Under 200?
under 200. But I'd like to have that lot dimensional requirement chart in front of me. It breaks out into 3 different setbacks, I believe, based on structure size. And then agricultural buildings are 20 feet from a side and rear yard, such as a barn.
Hey, Dan, I have a question. Did
Sure.
Map Geo upgrade the delineation of the contours? Are they at 1 foot intervals now? Do you know?
Marla, was that a 2 foot that they?
It's 2 foot.
It's
Yeah,
2 foot?
2 foot, yeah.
I must have counted wrong the other day, but I thought it was like
So
1 foot.
so they're on Axis. It's Axis GIS, which
Right,
is
right.
not as good as Map Geo.
Geo.
Axis GIS in that themes or layers.
Yeah.
There's a one spot that says contours, and that was the original one that they brought online for us. I think was a 5 foot contour. They've added an additional button you could check for the 1 foot contour. It's not. It doesn't say like 1 foot contour.
If they don't tell you. In fact, they don't even have any labels for what the what the elevations are. So
Yeah, no, that's where I got confused.
yeah, you can't tell. All I can tell is you have to have an understanding of the landform to figure out whether or not you're going up or downhill. That's not very good, but it's better than nothing.
On the screen, I have see that contours 2016 tiled. This is the 2 foot contour. The other contour map is the 5 footer.
The 2016 says it's tiled, so if you open that up, you'll get all kinds of tiles.
Yep.
And I don't know which. I'm assuming that maybe they give you the elevations for those particular tiles. I'm not sure what that's for.
I'd rather not the ability to click on that plus and have that, you know. I will, it drives me nuts. I'm gonna ask Tyke while they're here, what can I do for free to have them clean that up? In terms of its presentation and
accuracy.
But it is helpful. Mr. Adeo for Meadowside, looking at the 5 foot contour didn't help me at all. And understanding the topography over by the campground, but the 2 foot was much more detail. It's more useful than just the contour map that we were working with previously, but there's still could be some refinement. And
thank you.
Yeah, that's all I had written in the report. Some other news. I'm going to be attending the Casio zoning enforcement officer training and test the week of May 20th through the 24th. That's 2 weeks from today. I'll be even staying out in Cromwell to make this work this time. I was last time I took this test, I was in the car an hour and a half each way. And in 2020, it wasn't a great time or format to take the class under those circumstances. So I'll be renting a cheap hotel room and studying every night, and hopefully getting a passing grade on the Casio. I'll be available by email. And I'll be back in time for the week prior to our June meeting to process applications that have come through. So for June, we've received one application and scheduled it for review. We've tabled another application and for the June meeting. And at 4:30 today, I had two applications walk in the door. One for a timber harvest and another for some shoreline work that were not complete. And we're going to be working to have that on for the June meeting. So we've already got 4 items of business for the June meeting. Potentially a fifth with a lot that was cleared on Hemlock. So and we haven't even reached the the starting line for that yet. So I anticipate more coming in. And another busy month such as this one. But just trying to digitize these and just keep a checklist of who's got all their forms in order, and chase them down and have them ready to go as soon as I can, because if I delay one little bit, they all come in a big pile. But I would be happy to answer any questions, or if there's something that's I've forgotten or neglected to mention. Appreciate any jog of my memory.
If nobody has anything, I've got a couple of things that I want to bring up at this point. All right. I'll give you bad news first, and I'll give you the other bad news second.
Oh, God.
If you got Dan had forwarded the electronic version of Connecticut Wildlife, I think at the last month's meeting, and I don't know if anybody had a chance to look at it.
Where did that come from? From Dan?
From Dan, yeah. It was the
So
magazine Connecticut Wildlife.
It's in our mailbox, right?
It would have been from the last meeting,
Okay.
I think. So we have a new aquatic weed invasive that's very dangerous. That's in Connecticut. It's called Connecticut River hydrilla. Is a unique form from other known hydrilla strains that is genetically distinct. The plant's biology is largely unknown at this time. Hydrilla is an aquatic plant that has earned the illustrious title, the world's worst invasive aquatic plant. Listed as a federal noxious weed, hydrilla has made its home in just about every conceivable freshwater habitat, including rivers, streams, lakes, ponds, marshes, canals, ditches, and reservoirs. It was first discovered in the United States in the 1960s in Florida. Since then, it has spread to many parts of the United States. Hydrilla can grow in a wide variety of water conditions, such as high or low nutrients, high or low turbidity, variable pH, up to 7% salinity, and water temperatures. And like most native aquatic plants, hydrilla is capable of growing under extremely low light conditions. The plant is able to begin photosynthesizing much earlier in the morning than native plants, so it is able to capture most of the carbon dioxide in the water, thereby limiting growth of other plants. Hydrilla grows very rapidly, can double its biomass every 2 weeks in the summer, and has no natural predators or diseases to limit its population. This invasive aquatic plant species can negatively affect local ecosystems. It forms dense stands underwater that can alter river flow, shade or crowd out all other native aquatic plants, replace habitat of sensitive species, alter water chemistry and pH, cause dramatic swings and reduction in dissolved oxygen levels, increase water temperatures, and negatively affect the diversity and abundance of fish populations. Hydrilla also has negative impacts on recreation, including making it more difficult or even potentially dangerous for both boating and swimming due to the denseness of its growth. Hydrilla grows in long, easily fragmented strands, which readily spread and develop into new plants.
So adding on to what Bill just mentioned, last year it was a deep webinar where they gave a presentation about hydrilla, and they were trying to figure out the source of this spread to lakes around the state. And one common factor in these lakes was that they were holding fishing competitions. And they theorized that that Connecticut river hydrilla was introduced into all these random lakes around the same time as that the lake hosted a fishing competition. So clean boating practices is definitely a key to stopping this spread. I think it's just gonna kind of take over more until we've got the resources to address it. It's kind of surprised how fast it's been spread, but that's how they theorize just dropping in without cleaning your boat in a few lakes, and there it goes.
Well, we've had another, invasive species that we've been dealing with for years, milfoil. I'm wondering how this will compete with the milfoil.
Well, according to their comments, could take over everything, so.
Wow.
Might get rid of the milfoil, but it might be worse.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a couple other emails that I have here. Some of you probably have got this that are gone to Kakiwik or involved in Kakiwik things. And this involves a bill that I don't know if it's come up yet, but this is from several weeks ago. It says urgent action needed for wetlands and watercourse protection. Greetings, Connecticut Conservation and Inland Wetlands Commissioners and friends of Kakiwik. Kakiwik requests your help in opposing the latest version of Bill HB 5475, an act concerning the development of housing, challenges to certain decisions of municipal agencies, and the conversion of vacant nursing homes into multifamily housing. Section 3 of this bill will permit municipalities to adopt an ordinance to allow development in certain areas of the town without the review of their Inland Wetlands Agency. Without the benefit of Inland Wetlands Agency review, historical experience has shown that new development can contribute to flooding and stormwater damage from degraded wetlands and watercourses, which we must avoid as we work to build climate change resiliency throughout the state. Section 1 of this bill will eliminate the ability of local government commissions, utility, conservation, and environmental organizations, environmental justice groups, and most residents to intervene in the administrative procedures or judicial appeals under the Connecticut Environmental Protection Act. Both sections will roll back 5 decades of environmental protection in Connecticut. And it says, please contact the state representative of your district and state your strong opposition to this bill. Tell them that you will also be looking out for similar language that may be inserted in other bills, legislative rats, they call them, as occurred during the closing days of the last legislative session. Thank you for your ongoing efforts in protecting our state's inland wetlands, watercourses, and other important habitats.
What was the bill number on that?
HB
5475.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anybody has heard any update about that. So relative to that, I received a personal email from Janet Brooks, attorney Janet Brooks, that says, I apologize for sending a mass mailing to clients, friends, and associates, but it's the last few days of the Connecticut General Assembly and Tempest Fugit. This is an urgent alert to contact your state representative and state senator in the next few days, which this is dated April 24th. If House Bill 5475, file number 419, an act concerning development of housing challenges to certain decisions of municipal agencies is passed with sections 1 and 3 as proposed, the legislature will eviscerate the protection of wetlands and watercourses in our state by allowing a town legislative body, Board of Selectmen, City Council, etc., to designate a geographic area where commercial and retail development exists exempt from State Wetlands Act for any kind of development, and drastically cut back on citizen participation, such as environmental interveners or SEPA interveners, by limiting intervention in projects involving any kind of house or housing to people or organizations who own real estate within 100 feet of the project. For half a century, State Wetlands Act and SEPA, the Connecticut Environmental Protection Act, has been part of the fabric of our lives and have coexisted with Democratic, Republican, and independent administrations. This bill has been drafted by the Democratic House Majority Leader Jason Rojas and was voted out of the Legislative Committee on party lines. The votes opposing this rollback of our environmental laws were cast by Republicans, who are in the minority. This bill could be voted on at any time between now and May 8th, the last day of the session. I, along with environmental organizations, had the opportunity to meet with Representative Rojas. He articulates his concern for more affordable housing. No disagreement there. But his bill is as focused on affordable housing as a bull in a china cabinet. The revisions are neither limited to affordable housing, nor do they even mention it. It's 2024. We know we have to take into account flooding from erratic weather events caused by climate change. We know our wetlands are a part of that solution. If you do not wish to return to the unregulated and underregulated days of the first half of the 20th century, please contact your legislator by telephone or email and make your voice heard. As one Democratic legislator told me, it's hard to vote against the wishes of the majority leader. Speak up, make it harder for your elected officials to vote against your interests. And she has a link there for the elected officials and a link for the bill itself. And she also states, and no, I'm not getting paid to do this. I can't sleep at night thinking that the environmental laws might end up having been stronger when I started practicing environmental law in the early 1980s than when I finish. Attorney Janet Brooks.
So could you forward that to the rest of us?
The email
Yeah,
from Janet? Or
yeah,
the
because
other
she's
one?
got the links in there and I'm trying to find. I found her testimony in the legislative history.
Yeah,
But I can't find the actual language of the bill, and there were some amendments that were put into. So I don't know.
well.
A lot of people testified, environmental people testified against it. So I think we need to talk to our senator and to our legislator, our
Well,
House of
we could do that
Representatives.
individually. I was wondering if we would
Yes.
want to do that as a group also, as an agency.
I think it would be good if we did it individually, as our titles are. So chair, vice chair, treasurer, representative, that would be you, Mark. I guess everybody else has a title now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I if you could just forward that, that would be great.
Okay, normally I would ask to the sender if I would forward it, but in light of her tone in this
Yeah,
email, I don't think she would object to me forwarding this to you, so
Yeah.
I'll try to do that as soon as we're done.
Yeah, and given that our own governor has gotten involved in a wetlands violation down in Greenwich for clear cutting trees in wetlands on his neighbor's property, which you probably haven't heard a whole lot about, but he didn't get approvals, neither from the property owner nor from the wetlands agency, and it was kept really hush hush because it started back in November.
Huh.
And it's
Yeah,
only
I saw-
coming to light now in the Hartford Current, had an article not too long ago about it.
I saw
Our
that
own-
article, yeah.
Yeah. I thought, shame on you.
Well, my other thought about it is that there are plenty of either underutilized or abandoned commercial, industrial, or educational sites in the state that would be totally unnecessary. I mean, almost every community has at least one of those types
Mhm.
that would be totally unnecessary to take wetlands for that sort of development. And I'd like to know where the vacant nursing homes are, whether they've just been shut down by the state for code violations, but seems like the nursing homes could take as many people as you could, they probably could double the number of people in the homes as want to get in there. So I'm sure they,
Well, a lot of nursing homes are having problems financially, and so they're getting bought out by investors,
uh-huh,
and so they're looking to get a return on their investment.
yeah,
And so there's probably some LLCs out there that have some pretty high placed individuals who have put some influence in the legislature to do this. That would be
Yeah.
my guess.
and in doing that, they'd probably also cutting back on the amount of Medicaid patients they take because they don't allegedly make money on those.
Mhm.
So that's all I got.
So who's our state rep, our state senator?
It's our former chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Jeff Gordon.
Oh, so, okay, so Jeff Gordon is our state senator.
Yep.
And who's our state rep?
Comes from Pomfret.
Pat Boyd,
Yeah.
is it?
Pat
is it
Boyd, right?
Pat
Okay,
Boyd.
yeah,
Yep.
okay.
But I don't know if it's the same for all of us. Isn't part of Woodstock part of partialed off
It's-
now?
I think you're right.
Yeah. So you'd have to
Mr.
double check.
Chairman, this is Dottie. I will add that Kurt Vale is the representative for the western part of
Okay.
Woodstock. Kurt Vale.
Okay.
Is
Thank
that
you,
with a
Dottie.
K or a C?
His first name starts with K with a Kurt with a K, and then Vale, V as in Valentine.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Does
So
anybody-
if
Go
you
ahead.
get a chance to go online to, the joint favorable report by the Planning and Development Committee, they have the language for the history of people for and against. And you've got some interesting people that Janet, by the way, is in there giving her testimony opposing the bill. And the League of Conservation Voters, the Rivers Alliance, there's some Casio, some of the people, the Connecticut Water Works, Connecticut Council on Small Towns, these are all opposing it. So there's a lot of opposition to this. Save the Sound. So if you go and look at the joint favorable, there you go. You can see all the different people that are for and against it. And it's kind of interesting, the ones that are for it. So. Anyways, that's for a later time.
John Guskowski, that name's familiar.
Yeah, yeah, and he's for it.
All right, I have a few other questions. Does anybody have any comments at this point? Or any other business they'd like to bring up?
I have those statute citations for Dan regarding when applications have to come before the Inland Wetlands Commission, that are before the Planning and Zoning Commission. Similar to the subdivision statutes that say when a site contains wetlands, at the time the application is submitted to the Planning and Zoning Commission, an application has to be submitted to the Inland Wetlands Agency for their review and comment to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Besides the subdivision regulations, it's site plan applications that are controlled by section 8-3 parenthetical G parenthetical 1, of the Connecticut General Statutes and section 8-3C, and that's an application for a special permit. So there are 3 instances where the Planning and Zoning Commission gets an application, and if there's any wetlands on the property, doesn't matter whether they're being proposed to be altered or not, but if they're on the property, the statute requires the applicant to submit an application to the Inland Wetlands Agency for its review and comment to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So I don't know if the zoning regulations have those sections referenced. The statute 8-3 parenthetical G parenthetical 1 was a public act 07-102 that added that language. So maybe they just haven't updated their zoning regulations in a long time.
Marla,
But-
what public act did you have on that again?
Public Act 07-102. And that related to section 8-3 parenthetical G parenthetical 1.
I'll bring this up with Delia. Close up any holes that we have there.
Yep.
Anybody else have comment or a question? So Dan, are there any issues that we can help you with, or what differences that we could change or whatever to make things better for you one way or another?
I mean, eventually, having the authority to issue wetlands agent approvals, rather than being delegated back to me through the meeting, would kind of get the business done rather than letting it turn into a pile for the meeting. But I appreciate the commission conducting these reviews, the meat of these reviews in this context. There's always somebody who wants me to make the most liberal interpretation that I can to avoid, going through a commission process. But I really appreciate being able to lean on the commission and make these decisions with your blessing, because I'm still not versed well in rural and aquatic lake community types of issues. So each one of these is still a little bit new to me, and down the road it might streamline things if the wetlands agent approval process was just in my domain. But for now, I think this works. We're able to, we had, I think, 10 items on the agenda and process them efficiently. So I don't see it as taking up too much time. If anything, the applicant doesn't want to wait so long. But doesn't really bother me. I think we still try to do what we can to accommodate timelines. So I can't do anything about the volume, and when all these the projects suddenly come before us with an application, it'd be nice if we just worked on it, average of 3 or 4 or 5 a month, and kept that same pace, rather than my grandmother would call it some days chicken, some days feathers. But I think we processed these pretty good tonight with the volume that we did have. So I appreciate your help in all these reviews.
I think just my 2 cents is that it gives a balanced approach, which particularly when you mention the liberal sort of attitude, liberal may not be the right word, or maybe perhaps lenient approach is what is most desirable from us, what people want. but it's more about their expediency, which I think is will end up putting pressure on the ZEO that can be balanced out with the commission.
I like being able to lean on the regs and say, it's not me, it's the regs. It's, you know, you want to take this to the commission. We have expertise on this commission across different disciplines. And I also frame it for the peace of mind as for your business and for your client and for the person checking permits when the house goes up for sale sometime down the road, that you want to have gone through this full process. We'll try to make it as painless as we can. We need this documentation and this level of rigor, but this isn't such an onerous process. And I think we do a really good job. I appreciate the everything this commission does. It really carries a lot of the weight.
Well, and we don't care what anybody else does. Because I'm sure they have, if it's an engineer or something, they have different experiences in other towns and cities, so. Anything else, Dan?
That's all I got.
Okay. How about Dottie? Do you have anything that we need to do or we could improve with you?
You could make unmuting a little quicker.
I
No,
can't do
thank you
that.
very much, Mr. Chairman. Everything is good. Appreciate you asking.
Okay, well, we greatly appreciate all your help. We couldn't do it without you. It's a huge task and you do it well.
Thank you. I enjoy it because it's like seeing democracy happen right in front of me. I like it.
Yep. And I guess I was amiss. It's one thing is that we should have had a moment of silence for Jay Swan. So let's do that right now. Okay, thank you very much. Does anybody else have any other business or any other comments?
Yeah, I move to adjourn.
Okay,
Second,
Oh,
Who seconded
Let's do-
that?
Mark.
he was quick.
Yeah, I'm getting tired.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstain. The message is meeting is adjourned at 9:46 p.m. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a good night.
Thank you,
Thank
you
you.
too.
Good night.
Have a good one,
Good night.
everybody.
Good night.
Good night.